So hi, this is a response video to Funeral Song 34 for like the third time in a row, but or fourth, I think. But this is good stuff. We got to keep on talking about this, get the ideas out, um, and don't mind my bed. You know, I've got my computer or another computer, my old computer. I'm working on improving my computer that I have now, my new one. So let's get into the meat and bones. I have some more, ideas to throw at you, some retorts. I just mentioned that I was throwing ideas, talking about new ideas, or well, really old ideas. Exactly, this is a market. We are in a market of ideas right now. When I talk about the market, really in the end, the market is just people, the way I see it. Because, I could be transacting on any kind of item. I could give you money for it. And that's basically the market. It's just a transaction. Whereas specifically a stock market is just one sector of the market. You have, commodities markets, you have a food, a grocery market down the street, all these markets, but those are just business markets. There's also a market of ideas. You could create any kind of market you want, but stock markets are very specific. And well, you talked about manipulation of the stock markets and such. I'll get into that in a minute. But when I talk about the market, I'm talking about a very generic idea. Willingly devaluing the dollar from 1,000 to 1, actually that's really valuing the dollar. It's not even devaluation. And the prices will adjust. It's gonna happen. If you, if I get $1,000 and exchange it for a gold coin, even though it's really 1,400 now. If I take $1,400, exchange it for a gold coin, it's still gonna retain that value. Once it goes up to $2,000, and it will at this point, then it still retains the same purchasing power as before. There's that old saying: if you were in old Rome and you you wanted a tunic and a belt and a nice pair of shoes, then it'd be a gold coin. And if you went to buy a suit now and a belt and a nice pair of shoes, it would be about a gold coin. The purchasing power hasn't changed much. Of course, that's a overstatement, and of course the markets are manipulated at this point, but in the end, as long as confidence, I guess you and I would agree on confidence. It's important. But that's the whole point. People are losing confidence in the dollar. The M1 doubled from 7.5% of the whole money supply to 13% in 2008 in one day. It happened in one day. Same with, it's just theft. I think you and I would agree that it's wrong to give money to the banks, even though they should have failed. It's immoral to do that. Because they're just going to keep on doing the same scheme over and over again. It's just wrong. And so fiat currency is wrong in the first place. So just because you're afraid of going to a gold coin standard, just because we don't know what that would look like right now, doesn't mean that it's the wrong thing to do. It is the right thing to do. It's much more moral. Because the value can't be corrupted, not except by the market itself, not by the Federal Reserve. I guess you and I would probably agree there as well. But this is the whole thing. Articles of Confederation, we hyperinflated them. Back in the day, each state had their own printing press, and made their own continental dollar. And in order to pay back the French, we had to inflate that currency, so people lost faith in that currency quickly. But no, you never hear about all this. But it inflated, it lost its power, so the Articles of Confederation was lost, so they created a new constitution because of that. It has nothing to do with the power of the Federation itself. It's just that the Articles of Confederation collapsed under hyperinflation. So, and then we went to a gold standard, and that worked out. So the gold is always something that the market goes to after a fiat currency is used, and it's gonna happen, whether we do it now or when the dollar collapses. It's gonna happen. Either that, or we're gonna barter. People are, saying that we need to stockpile on food and all this other stuff. Maybe to some degree, but in the end, we can barter. It doesn't matter if I farm my own food or not. I can barter with somebody, and eventually silver and gold is going to be in circulation, and people are going to, exchange with that. So it's going to happen one way or another. Toward the end of your video, you talked about interest on credit cards being 30% and that kind of thing. I'm totally with you on that. This is ridiculous. Savings accounts shouldn't be, like 0.2% or whatever. Wow, how generous of them. Back in the day, you were saying it was like 4%, 5% or whatever savings accounts, I'm like, yeah, and that's what CDs are now. I'm sure back in the day, CDs were better than what they are now. It's a ripoff. Banks are a ripoff. If I were to create my own business like I want to, I'm not going to have a loan with a bank. I'm not going to have a savings account with a bank. I'm going to do it all out of my pocket. I'm going to use silver. Because in the end, it's smarter. You don't want to be taxed up your butt. You don't want to lose money through inflation. So, I'm right with you on that. It's ridiculous. But this is why we lost faith, is because of the Federal Reserve, because they can do all this because of the Federal Reserve. It just lends it just lends right to it. I don't know if I said that right. As to the meat and bones, really, of what you're trying to get at, though, like manipulation, perception, and in a way, I agree with you. Perception plays a part in all of this. But in the end, let's say some information about silver gets out, like it just did. Now silver spikes, and I'm getting happy, obviously, because silver spikes. But it's already been going up. But anyway, manipulation to itself, perception. There's a spike, and then the market sorts itself out in the end anyway, because people are just regularly transacting. Whether information about this commodity or this stock gets out or not, it'll happen for like a week, and then the market sorts itself back out. In the end, people should be looking at the fundamentals of a business. If we're talking about the stock market, people should be looking at the fundamentals of commodities in the first place. It's a hard asset, so it has some value, and it is intrinsic because people use it in the market. Gold is used in electronics, like you said, jewelry, so it has a use, as opposed to paper money, which doesn't. I can burn it. It's easy. The argument is that gold can be floated, or gold can sink to the bottom of the ocean, but someone can at least dig it up later. You know what I mean? so it never lost its value. While the paper dollar can. I could burn it up, I could, rip it up, and then it's gone. So there is some intrinsic value to the commodity itself. But in the end, gold and silver could be manipulated, but only for a short time, I think. The argument is that silver has been manipulated for years. Well, fine. It doesn't matter. It's a short-term thing anyway, because in the end, the truth comes out. In the end, I'm gonna say it, freedom rings in the end. The truth always wins. So this is why we need to go back to gold and silver, whether we know what's gonna happen or how it's gonna come about or not. It must happen. So also, what else? You were saying that we're not on equal footing with companies, and you have the insider trading and all this manipulation and all this, so we don't know what's going on. But we do, if we just use our brains, that's all. This is why we're making videos on the internet. This is why the freedom movement is out there. We need to get the simple common sense of back in the 1700s, 1800s, back in the age of reason and the Enlightenment, the Renaissance. Everybody knew this kind of stuff, but all of a sudden now we're dumbed down and everything. And in a previous video that you made about election results, you were talking about how people don't know much of anything and people are apathetic. And this leads to my argument as to the apathetic people, or the people that have lost confidence in the state. They're libertarian, or at least they turned libertarian. Or, when you lose confidence in the state like that, something's wrong. Something's wrong with the economy. They're not listening to the news or the state itself, the government. So people are learning. People are trying to look outside the box. Trying to not listen to the same old propaganda. This is why people aren't voting. People aren't voting because they're not going to submit to this crap that we have. So people do know what they're doing now. People are getting it, and this is why you're seeing the prices rise. This is why it's Austrian economics. If you learn Austrian economics or just a little bit, simple supply-demand stuff and boom-bust cycles. Really simple stuff. And this is the truth. There's more to it than just perception. That's all I'm trying to get at. And yeah, you did mention that there's a lot about supply and demand versus the dollar and gold. Yes. But that's the whole thing. As the money supply of dollars, grows, over time. This isn't overnight. Usually, the way I see it, it takes a year or two. But as the money supply grows, then the value of the dollar, is lost, and so it looks like gold and silver are gaining value, but really it's the same value. It's just that it's rising prices compared to the lost value of the dollar. I mean, you and I get that. It's just that it's not, back with the gold, when we were on the gold, currency itself, not the hard money, not the gold standard, as it were. The gold supply was inflated, sure, but the value of gold did go up, and it's not just greed involved and that kind of thing. That's all I'm trying to get at. quick note, thank you for telling me that there's a 15-minute limit. I thought it